All right, guys, welcome back to another week. We are still in Genesis, though we're moving very quickly through Genesis. You could spend a very long time studying all of the stories in Genesis, but we're just kind of blowing through, picking out a couple of really good ones, studying them. I'm sure we'll be back in Genesis at some point in the future, but so a reminder for everyone, we're still having Zoom on Sundays at 7 o'clock p.m., not a.m. If you come at 7 a.m., you will be the only one there. You'll be Zooming with yourself. 7 p.m., come join us. We'll have a good time, play some games. It'll be good. Also, we're continuing the Secret Word, a weekly contest, drawing, whatever you want to call it. So our winner this week is Stone Kelly. He actually snuck it in on Thursday night, and it wins, right? It doesn't matter when you turn it in, as long as you watch, you get the video, or you get the word, you turn it in, you can win just like everybody else. So, Stone, I'll be in touch, and we'll get that prize to you. We're going to do it slightly different today. You'll hear about that when the secret word comes up this week, but there's a little bit of extra this week, so stay tuned for that. Remember, you can text me, email me, whatever it takes. Get in touch with me in any way. Need your name and the information. So, last week, we talked about Jacob and Esau, the brothers, and the little brother quarrel that they had. Actually, a couple of brotherly fights. I don't know if you related to that story, if you fight with your siblings very much. I know I fought with my brother a lot when I was growing up, so it was very much a story that I related to. We talked about that we all come from different families, different life situations, and that sometimes people don't treat us well, even our own family. Sometimes our own family does things, and we have to show some forgiveness. And we talked about being relationship menders. We talked about being people who are about forgiving others, regardless of what they did to you, and kind of mend that relationship. So we're going to continue along the very same light today. We're going to be talking about forgiveness. We're going to be talking about this new story about Joseph. More family drama, more sibling rivalry type stuff going on in this story today. We got a lot to study, but what I want to just think for a second before we just dive into this story. I want you to think for a second about times in your life where maybe something happened to you that was unexpected, you were unprepared for, surprised you, in a maybe a negative way. So things like, has someone that you thought was your friend, or maybe you're a family member or something, ever talked bad about you and made fun of you? Maybe in front of your face, maybe behind your back, and you found out about it. How did you respond? What did you do in the moment when you found out about it? How did it impact you? How did it make you feel? How does it impact you today with that relationship with that friend or with that family member? Has it changed the way that you interact with them? So what about, has someone ever stolen something from you? Have they ever taken something that should have been yours? They jumped in front of you in a line? Or I don't know, just have they ever taken something from you? Again, how did you respond? What did you do in the moment when you realized that it had happened, that something had happened? And again, how did it affect that relationship? How did it affect you as a person? Your mood, your feelings? How did you respond? What did you do? What about physical? So someone pushed you up against the locker, maybe bullies you, maybe just kind of shoves you around. I know my brother, I'm sure he never meant to hurt me or anything, but he definitely was bigger, taller, stronger, at least for a while before I eventually outgrew him, and I'm now the bigger brother as far as size. But for a long time, I was 3 years younger than him. I was significantly smaller and shorter, and if he could use that to his advantage in certain competitive arenas, he definitely did. He definitely, would shove me around and all that kind of stuff. But that's like brotherly, just kind of messing around. But what about someone who's actually just being a jerk, being mean? We talk about making fun of you, but they're just kind of asserting their physicality to you. And again, how did you respond? How did you feel in the moment? How did it impact? Maybe he didn't have much of a relationship with the bully, but how does it impact how you view them and who you are today and how you feel about those situations? So we're gonna talk a little bit about things that happened to you, things that happened in the story to Joseph, which is a new character that we'll introduce today. And how do you respond to the situations of life that come at you, and how does it affect who you are and how you respond and your outlook on life and those types of things. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Today we're going to talk about Jacob's family. So we talked about Jacob and Esau, right? Now we're going to talk about his family. So he's now grown up. He's got a family of his own. And we're going to talk about his kids. So we're going to be in Genesis. I said that already, chapter 37. So just some context here. The passage is going to refer to him also as Israel. That's kind of another name for him. Think of it like a nickname or remember we talked about Abram turned to Abraham. It's a similar-ish type of thing, but so when you hear Israel referenced in this passage, it's just another name for Jacob here. So we're in Genesis chapter 37, starting in verse 1. Jacob lived in the land where his father had stayed, the land of Canaan. These are the family records of Jacob. At 17 years of age, Joseph tended sheep with his brothers. The young man was working with the sons of Bilhah and Zilpah, his father's wives, and he brought a bad report about them to their father. Now Israel loved Joseph more than his other sons. Here we are with another dad loving some favoritism here. More than his other sons because Joseph was born to him in his old age. And he made a robe of many colors for him. When his brothers saw that their father loved him more than all his brothers, they hated him and could not bring themselves to speak peaceably to him. Then Joseph had a dream. When he told it to his brothers, they hated him even more. He said to them, "Listen to this dream I had. There we were, binding sheaves of grain in the field. Suddenly, my sheaf stood up, and your sheaf gathered around it and bowed down to my sheaf. Are you really going to reign over us?" his brothers asked. "Are you really going to rule us?" So they hated him even more because of his dream and what he had said. Then he has another dream. So it's very similar in verses 9 through 11 there. It's another dream. There's the stars and the sun and the moon. And again, they're bowing down to him, shares the dream, and they hate him even more, right? He is not doing himself any favors here, right? So his dad loves him more than the rest. If that doesn't make your brothers hate you, I don't know what does. His dad didn't do him any favors, right? So he's one of the youngest. He's the second youngest of 12 brothers. So if you're a younger brother or sister, you know that your older brother and sisters think you're annoying. They think you're, I don't want to deal with you a lot of the time. And so, that was already going to happen. And now they're like, and he's the favorite. And oftentimes us, youngest children are the favorites. I don't know if that is for you or if you feel that in your family, but maybe it's just we feel that way and it's not actually the case. But I was a third child, and I'm sure my parents would never admit it, but I was the favorite. So then we have here that he has a dream. So he gets a special coat from his dad, and then he has a dream just like any other little brother. He's like, oh, guess what's going to happen? I had this dream. Now, he could have kept this to himself, and if he'd known any better, he probably should have. So he has this dream that his brother's sheaves, the stalks of grain, right, are bowing down to his stalk of grain. You know that's going to upset your brothers. You know this. And yet he's like, I'm going to tell him. I'm going to tell him. Guess what, guys? I had this dream. It was the best. All your sheaves are bowing down to my sheaf. It was awesome, right? And they're just like, okay, you're obnoxious and I hate you even more. You're like, really? We're going to bow down to you? Like they immediately were able to look at this dream and kind of understand kind of the meaning of it. Like, our sheaves are going to bow down to you, to your sheaf. That means that we're going to bow down to you. No, we're the older brothers. You're just the little pipsqueak little brother, right? In fact, didn't it say 17 years of age? So that's actually a little older, but still. In that day and time, got a bunch of older brothers. They're out working in the field. They've got jobs. They're doing stuff. And the little brother is being annoying. So they got really mad. Like really mad. It said that they hated him even more 3 separate times, right? So it's a serious level of dislike, right? And so this story of Joseph goes on from chapter 37 through chapter, really into chapter 50, but we're going to kind of finish up today in chapter 45, but I'm not going to have you read all of that. We're not going to read all of that today. I'm going to tell you about a little bit of homework later that I want you to do and why you should do it. But I'm going to summarize this. I don't want you to take my word for it. I want you to read this. This is a fascinating story. It's actually one of my favorite stories in the Bible, and I think that if you take the time and you read through it, you'll get a lot out of it. You'll get to understand Joseph, his character, a lot more, and kind of what he went through to get to where we're going to get to today. And it'll bring you just a lot of context and really understand the story. I don't know if y'all are the kind of people where you get really into a particular series and you read all the back end about the characters and you learn about the history and like what happened in this movie and you're trying to understand this, and like that's me. Like I was a big fan of the Marvel series, and so I'm trying to understand all the little nuances. Oh, this was talking about this future movie that's going to happen and this is going to happen. That's the kind of thing that you can understand here if you dive in and you read. You don't just take my word for it. You can really kind of understand the context of the stories and the characters and kind of what's going on, so that you really understand what's going on at the end here. But I'm going to summarize a bunch of chapters here. We're gonna blow through Genesis and we're going to continue talking about this story. So we started off. Who is Joseph? Right? We know who he is. He's the second youngest son of Jacob. He's hated right now by all of his brothers, and they get really mad. So, what is the first thing that they do? They get really mad. He goes out to check on them in the field, and they throw him in a pit. They get really mad. They see him coming. They grab him. They capture him. They throw him in a pit. That already sounds awful, right? If you're a kid and you get thrown into a pit, you can't get out. You're trapped. You don't know what's going to go on. You're out somewhere where no one else is going to come find you, at least for a long time. This is hot water, right? We're in trouble. And then Reuben, one of his older brothers, heard that the brothers were actually plotting to kill him. They were mad. They threw him in a pit. All right, let team huddle. What are we going to do about this little brat? What are we going to do? And so they start talking. They start deciding amongst themselves, let's kill this guy. Let's just be done with him. I'm over him, right? And then Reuben's like, we can't kill him. Like, he's our father's favorite. We don't want to get all in trouble with dad. Like, plus he, I'm sure, cared for Joseph as a brother. He's not liking him right now. I'm sure Reuben's just as mad as some of these other guys, but he's like, we can't kill him. Guys, that's too much. It's too much. So what does Reuben talk them into? He talks them into selling him into slavery. A caravan comes by while they're kind of discussing all of this. Midianite, I think. Caravan comes by, and then they're like, all right, well, we won't kill him. We'll just get rid of him. Get him out of our life. He can go live a life somewhere else in slavery. So they sell him into slavery. Man, things are just I'm thrown in a pit. They're thinking about killing me. That he may or may not have known that, right? And then now they're selling him into slavery. This is a very bad day for Joseph. And this is just the beginning. It's just the beginning of the story for Joseph. So then he's sold into, so he's taken to Egypt. This caravan takes him to Egypt, and he is sold to be a slave into the house of one of Pharaoh's captains, captain of the guard. And then a lot happens at that house. He has this disagreement and kind of thing with the wife of his owner, and she gets really mad at him, and so she, lies and pitches a fit, and because she doesn't get what she wants, he's not willing to do that, and so that gets Joseph thrown in prison. Again, it never seems to stop for Joseph. He keeps trying to do what's right. He keeps, trucking along and making decisions and dealing with a situation that he's in, and then he finds himself in prison. So that takes us to chapter 39. So then in chapter 40, there's two other guys in prison, and he interprets their dreams. They have dreams. The dreams weren't similar to the one that he had, but they, like him, they had dreams, and they didn't know what they meant. They were like, these dreams are kind of weird and I don't understand. And so he, through the power of the Holy Spirit, through God's power in him, was able to interpret these dreams for these two guys. And then in chapter 41, one of those two guys gets out of prison, is back kind of doing his job for the Pharaoh of Egypt, and Pharaoh has a dream. And Pharaoh's like, I don't know what this dream means. So he gets all these smart people. Anyone that thinks that they know what this dream means, I want to know what it is, and nobody knows what it is. And then this guy was like, wait a second, there was a guy in prison, I had a dream, he told me what the dream meant, and then that happened, so he was totally right. He'll be able to do it. He'll be able to interpret your dream. So they go grab Joseph, they bring him out, and in this particular dream, it was saying that there was going to be times of a lot of food. There was going to be a bountiful harvest in the land. They were going to have overflows of all of this food. And then there were going to be times of what they call famine, which is basically that the harvest is low or poor or none, and they're struggling to get food. And so this is what the dream that Pharaoh had was all about. And so Joseph is explaining to Pharaoh, you're going to have 7 years of all kinds of food, bountiful harvest, all this stuff, and then you're going to have 7 years of famine. And so Joseph says what you need to do is save up all of this stuff that you're collecting on the front end. When you're going to have all this extra food, don't just be a pig and eat it all or waste it. Like, save it. Be smart about it. Save it. And because you're going to need it. You're going to need it. And he's like, you need to put somebody in charge of this. You need to have somebody who's in charge of making sure that this happens, because you don't want to get to the 7 years at the end and have a problem. So Pharaoh's like, this is a brilliant plan. You do it. It's your plan. You were able to interpret my dream. You seem like a smart guy. You're in charge. So Joseph goes from annoying his little brothers, being thrown in a pit, being sold into slavery, getting in fights with your master's wife, getting thrown in prison. He even got forgotten about in prison for a little while. That's also in the passage. And then finally, something good happens for Joseph. Joseph is elevated to the second highest position in all of Egypt. Pharaoh says, everything comes under you except for me. It's Pharaoh and Joseph. Wow. What a crazy turn of events here, right? Turn of events, turn the page. So now, to give you some context on time, how much time has elapsed? We heard that he was 17, right? 13 years have gone by. So he is now 30, if I can do math. Okay? So that's a long time. We're not talking about a couple months, maybe a year, 13 years. That is your entire life, right? As a fourth, fifth, sixth grader, some of you probably aren't even 13 yet at all. So longer than your entire life goes by, and Jacob is something finally goes right for Joseph, not Jacob. Okay, so the years of famine come. They get through all the bountiful stuff. They save up all the food. Years of famine come, and guess who runs out of food? His brothers and their daddy. They ran out of food. What do? Well, I heard someone say that Egypt's got a lot of food. Let's go there. So they pack up. They're heading on to Egypt. They're saying, let's go there. They don't know Joseph's in Egypt. They don't know that Joseph's alive. They forgot about him 13 years ago, right? They were like, he's out of our lives. He's gone. He's done. He could be dead. Who knows? But they definitely weren't expecting him to be in Egypt. Definitely not where he was in Egypt. So they get there, and the little brother in me loves this section of the story. I love this section of the story because Joseph sees them coming. He knows who they are. He recognizes them, and he knows what has happened in the past. He knows what they did to him. He knows all this stuff. And the first, in chapters like 41 and following, he messes with them. He just has a blast. He's like, okay. They come in, they're like, we need food. And he's like, okay, yeah, sure. Pay the money, do the food, packs up the bags, and then he puts the money that they gave him back in the bags and sends them on their way, and they don't realize it. So then they get it, and they open the bags, and they're like, why is our money here? Oh, that dude's going to be so mad. He's going to think we stole it because we've got the money and the food somehow. Like, this is not good. They are terrified. The second in command of Egypt, we just stole from him somehow. Like, this is not good. And Joseph did this on purpose, right? And so then they come back, and they ran out of food, need more food. They come back, and they're scared to come up there, right? So then he does it again. He does it again. He messes with them again. And then he says, but this time, take my silver cup, this really important or really kind of valuable thing, or the thing that I drink from, and go put it into the bag of his youngest brother, Benjamin. And go send him out, do it again. And so they get back and they do it again. And they're like, I'm sure these guys are like beside themselves. Like, what is who? Maybe they're turning it on themselves. Who did that? Who stole the money? Who did that? Like looking at all the brothers, like pointing fingers, like shoving each other, like who's taking the money? It's not cool. You're going to get us killed, right? They are petrified. So then they come back. Joseph does all this thing. He wants to go see his younger brother Benjamin. So he's like, through this whole story, if you go and read it, you'll see all this back and forth that's going on. But the whole time, he is messing with them. He is screwing with them, and I can just see the smirk on his face every time they come back, every time they're scared, every time they're coming back in here. He is just cracking up, and you'll see it, because we're going to pick up here in chapter 45. Now that we're past all this back and forth, go get my brother, bring him back, oh, I have the money, all this stuff, right? Okay, so we're in 45, 1 through 8, and here's where we're going to finish up the story. 45. Joseph could no longer keep his composure, right? The very beginning of this paragraph, just as a younger brother, I can just see him just like he just can't hold it back. They're petrified, and he knows it was him, and he's just like, I can't anymore. Like, you ever tell a joke, and you try to keep a straight face, and you just, at some point, you're just like, and you just bust out. Like, you just can't anymore. It's just too funny, right? That's what I picture here. So, can't keep his composure in front of all its attendants, so he called out, send everybody away. No one was with him when he revealed his identity to his brothers. But he wept so loudly that the Egyptians heard it, and also Pharaoh's household heard it. Joseph said to his brothers, I am Joseph. Is my father still living? But they could not answer him because they were terrified in his presence. The second that he said, this is Joseph, they all went, oh, no. Oh no, because they knew what they did. They immediately were 13 years back in their mind, and they were like, oh snap. Oh, what have we done? Like, he was doing this whole time, and now he's about to drop the hammer down. Like, they are petrified here. And then he says, then Joseph said to his brothers, please come near me. And they came near. I am Joseph, your brother, he said, the one you sold into slavery. So if they didn't remember it, they certainly do now. Sold into Egypt, actually, is what it says. And now, don't be grieved or angry with yourselves for selling me here, because God sent me ahead of you to preserve life. For the famine has been in these land 2 years, and there will be 5 more years without plowing or harvesting. God sent me ahead of you to establish you as a remnant within the land and to keep you alive by a great deliverance. Therefore, it was not you who sent me here, but God. He has made me a father to Pharaoh, Lord of his entire household and ruler over all of Egypt. So he finally reveals himself. They're petrified. And put yourself in Joseph's shoes here for a second. If all of this had happened to you, they sold you threw you in a pit, talked about killing you, sold you into slavery, you went through all of this stuff for 13 years. How would you respond? Would you respond like Joseph? I don't think I would. That would be hard. Talk about someone who forgave their brothers and what they did. They didn't expect it. They were terrified because they assumed he was going to respond negatively. They assumed what they did to him, he was not going to forgive. But they did not know Joseph very well, did they? So, what I want you to do, we're gonna finish up with an object lesson here, but the secret word today is forgiveness. That's the topic of this whole study with Joseph. But today, I'm going to give you some extra homework, but I'm going to make it worth your while. So if you want, send me a text message, whatever, with just that word, forgiveness, and that'll enter you for next week. But if you want, I want you to read this. I really want you to read this story. I know I had to just fly through it today, but I want you to read it. So if you can, in the email or text or whatever you're going to do, if you can tell me the name of the person's house he was sold into when he first got into Egypt, if you can tell me why did he end up in prison, if you can tell me what were the professions of the 2 people that he interpreted their dreams of, and then you can tell me how many years was the famine. And I think I actually gave that one answer away in this video. But if you can tell me those 5 different items, you will get an extra entry into the drawing for each one that you answer correctly. So at most, you can have 6 entries, secret word, and then an answer, a correct answer for those 6 things. And to make it worth your while, I'm going to bump it up to $15 this week. If you are willing to go dive in and try to find all of these other things, you'll have a much better chance at winning this week's drawing. Okay, so let's talk for a second about forgiveness. And let's talk about specifically Joseph and how he responded and how we should respond in life when things happen. So I've got a bunch of stuff here. I'm sure that you're probably wondering what's going on. So this doesn't probably look like you very much, but today this is going to represent you. It's going to represent me. It's going to represent us. And we're going to do a simple little illustration here to really illustrate a passage in Luke. And actually, I'm going to turn there real quick so I don't have to pull my Bible back out. It's in Luke chapter 6. Let me get there. I should have marked it. Luke chapter 6, verse 45. It's on the next page. It says, a good person produces good out of the good stored up in his heart. An evil person produces evil out of the evil stored up in his heart. For his mouth speaks from the overflow of the heart. That is the kind of concept we're going to demonstrate here. Joseph had a lot of things happen to him. He had a lot of outside influence that happened to him, and he had each time a choice. How am I going to respond? How am I going to react? How am I going to let it affect me? Not just in the moment, but over the course of my life. There are a lot of things in life that can change you forever if you let it, for good or bad. And it is up to us when things happen to make the right choice. So we're going to demonstrate that a little bit. So let's talk about you. Let's talk about your life. And we talked a little bit at the beginning about some things that maybe have happened to you in your life. I've that some different colored water here, and I want each one of these to kind of represent something that somebody does to you in your life. Somebody, maybe one of your best friends, and you find out that they have been talking bad about you. They've been they've been making fun of you. They've been talking to other people about you and telling them maybe some of your secrets, and everyone's laughing at your expense. And then you find out, and you're like, man, this was one of my best friends, and they did this to me. Like, what am I going to do? How am I going to respond? And sometimes that might make you angry. It might make you just furious and mad at them, and you allow that to be your response in life. You take the anger and you let it dwell inside of you. So there we are with a little bit of anger in our life. And guys, anger builds up. You allow one event, the next event to happen, and it will slowly begin to build up in your life, and it will begin to change who you are. Let's think about something else. So we talked about bullying earlier. We talked about being physical, someone shoving you up against something, someone bumping you down, knocking your books off, or just kind of bullying you, maybe even not just physically, but bullying you like mentally. You know, you're just a wimpy little kid, and like looking down on you and putting you down, like, oh, you're no any good, you're worthless, like nobody loves you, you know, and they're putting you down all the time. And again, it can make you feel lonely, it can make you feel hurt and depressed and sad, and you can choose to allow those actions to affect you and allow those feelings and those resentment and again, maybe some more anger, and you can allow it to dwell in your life. Let's keep going. So what else can happen in your life? Maybe somebody takes something from you. Maybe they steal. Well, maybe when you get a little older, they might like steal your girl or something like that. But in 6th grade, they cheat in a game. They do whatever they can to get ahead and try to knock you down and make themselves look better. And they maybe take first place in something, or maybe they just take something of yours. They just snatch your binder, your book bag, or maybe you accidentally left your iPod sitting around and they just take it or snatch it or something, right? They can just take. And there's so many different ways for people to take something from you in your life. It doesn't have to be a physical item. It can be, they can take, you know, you're just happy about life and you're excited, and all of a sudden they just start putting you down and they just take the joy out of what's going on in your life. And that can really affect you, and you can allow those feelings and that negativity and all that to, again, dwell in your life. And we're just going to allow this other one to just represent all of the other just negativity in our life, all the other just people doing bad stuff and affecting us, and we find ourselves in, maybe this is cancer. Maybe cancer comes in and they affect someone in your family. Maybe your grandmother dies or your parents die, or maybe it's sickness, or we got COVID going on right now. There's so much negativity and pain and hurt in the world, and so we're just going to lump all the rest of it in. And again, it can affect you mentally. It can affect how you view life, how you go about, and you can allow that to dwell in your life. Now, that's pretty nasty looking stuff, right? And if we allow all of that to affect us and allow us to dwell in our heart. Remember, Luke said, if I can find the verse again, Luke 6:45, it says, a good person produces good out of the good stored up in their heart, but an evil person produces evil out of the evil stored up in his heart. From his mouth speaks from the overflow of the heart. Guys, when we allow the negativity and the situations of life to change who we are and make us become negative, make us become angry, make us become depressed, make us become bullying of other people, make us start to take on those same characteristics that are being kind of inflicted upon us, that's what starts to come out. And you'll see that. So we got a leak. We got a leak. All right. This is going to represent the pressure of life, just the things in life that happen to us, and they apply pressure down on us and force us to respond. And as we allow as the pressure of life affects us, what you'll see happen, if I can actually get it to do it here. Am I going the wrong way? I'm going. There we go. As the pressure of life bears down upon you, as the scripture says, what is in your heart is going to come out. If you have anger stored up in your life, anger is going to come out. If you have, man, this is crazy here. If you have anger and depression and all this kind of stuff and sadness and all this in your life, that's what's going to come out in your life. Now, if I were to take this and refill it back with clear crystal water, get rid of all of this, if you were to make different choices in your life, when someone comes in and they bully you and you choose to pray for them, you pour a little bit of clear water in your life. If someone comes in and tries to steal your joy and you just smile all the more and you just say, you're not taking my joy. In fact, I'm going to work to make you a happy person. You ever try to do that? Take a little grumpy person and try to make them happy? It is fun. I have a good time with it. I am, in general, a pretty smiley person. I have a good time with life. I joke around. If you can't tell in the videos, I like to have a good time. And sometimes there'll be some people that are just in a grouchy old mood. Man, and I'll just come up alongside them like, how you doing? How you doing today? And they're like, go away. And I'm just like, man, today is a wonderful day. And I'll tell them jokes. I'll try to just get them in a good mood because we can respond differently. We don't have to choose to take that negativity and allow it to come inside of our heart. Jacob here didn't say, oh, I'm in slavery. I'll just kind of do whatever. Jacob, when he was given a choice with the guy's wife, he made the right choice. He did what God called him to do, and he resisted. When he was in prison and an opportunity presented itself, he didn't just like, woe is me, I'm in prison, I can't do anything. He stepped up and said, this is an opportunity, I'm taking it. And then when he gets to the very end and he's in the highest position, he had an opportunity for revenge. He was the highest person of any. He could have done anything he wanted. He could have killed all of them. He could have put them in prison. He could have done the same thing to them that they did to him. Y'all are going to come be slaves in Egypt. He could have done whatever he wanted, but instead he said, no, I trust in God. I know that God has a plan, And that's what he delivers here in the passage. He says, let's bounce back to it real quick. He says, let's see. God sent me ahead of you to establish a remnant while the land and within the land, and to keep you alive by a great deliverance. Therefore, it was not you who sent me, but God. Jacob didn't allow the negativity of life to fill him up. When the pressures of life came, he made the right choices, and he chose to forgive. He chose to resist temptation. He chose to stand up and take charge and do what God called him to do. And guess what? He was used in a mighty, mighty way. God had a plan, and Joseph realized it. He got to the end of this and he was like, man, all of that, the entire last 13 years was for this right here. And he just, I'm sure, was just overwhelmed by how wonderful God's plan is, and being able to see it unfold in front of him, and just being humbled by the fact that he chose to use him. And that can be you. Maybe you won't be the head of Egypt. Maybe you will. I don't know. But God can use you in a mighty, mighty way. But you have to fill your life with good things, with spiritual things, with faith, with trust, with belief in God, and turn to him when negative things are happening, and have the joy of Christ in your life like he did. So I hope that when the pressure of life comes to you and all of this negativity is happening, that you will make the right choices, that you will fill your life with godly things. And then that way, as life goes on and you are pressured and stuff starts spewing out of your mouth, it won't be hatred. It won't be negativity. It won't be all of these things. It'll be faith. It'll be hope. It'll be joy, patience, all of the fruits of the Spirit. That is what will come out in times of trial, if that's what you fill your life with. So we're going to pray. Don't forget Zoom at 7:00 p.m. and then we'll be done. So, dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this story. Thank you for your word. Thank you for showing us a person who was able to go through life's turmoil, life's struggles, and be used by you throughout all of it, and be able to have an opportunity to display forgiveness for all of us to learn from. Thank you for allowing us to see that you have a plan. When we may not see what's going on around us, we may not understand why all this negativity is happening in our life, but we can trust in you. We can trust in your plan for our life. And that can be the source of hope and joy in our life, is you and your plan. Thank you so much for all of these kids that are watching, for their willingness to study your word, their willingness to want to have a relationship with you, and to spend each week trying to understand who you are and who you want them to be. In Jesus' name I pray, amen. All right, guys. I'll catch you next week, and I'll see you in the Zoom. Have a good week.